Welcome. Today, we're diving into the concept of I+1, a cornerstone of Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis in second language acquisition. This idea has shaped how teachers and learners approach language learning for decades. At its core, I+1 means that the best way to acquire a new language is to receive input that is just a little bit more advanced than your current level. It's about finding that sweet spot language that's mostly understandable, but with a slight challenge that pushes your skills forward. Let's break down what this means and why it matters. Let's clarify the expression. In I+1, the I stands for the learner's current language ability. The +1 is language that's just one step more advanced. So, I+1 is input that's understandable, but slightly challenging. This is not about overwhelming learners with difficult material, nor is it about repeating what they already know. Instead, it's about providing just enough newness to keep learners engaged and progressing. This balance is crucial for effective language acquisition. To see I+1 in action, imagine a learner who understands basic sentences like, "The boy is running." If we want to provide I+1 input, we might say, "The boy is running because he is late for school." This new sentence introduces a more complex structure and some new vocabulary, but the learner can still grasp the meaning from context. The message is clear, but there's a small stretch just enough to promote learning without causing confusion. Krashen's research showed that language acquisition happens most effectively when learners receive comprehensible input language they mostly understand, with just a bit of newness. If the input is too easy, there's little new learning. If it's too hard, learners get frustrated or lost. But when input is just slightly beyond the current level, it creates optimal conditions for growth. This principle guides much of modern language teaching. Let's visualize what happens with different types of input. If the language is too easy, just repeating what the learner already knows, there's little progress. If it's too difficult, like jumping from simple sentences to complex paragraphs, learners may feel overwhelmed. The I+1 approach finds the middle ground, input that's mostly familiar, but with a manageable challenge. This is where real learning happens. So, what does I+1 mean for teachers, especially in TESOL classrooms? It means designing lessons where students can understand most of the language, but also encounter small new elements. Teachers use visuals, gestures, and context to make slightly harder language understandable. They introduce new vocabulary within familiar structures and adjust their speech to match students' needs. The goal is to keep learners challenged, but never lost. One practical way teachers apply I+1 is by introducing just one new structure or concept at a time. For example, if learners already know present tense verbs and basic daily activities, the teacher might introduce the present continuous tense. She is reading a book, or they are playing soccer. Because the vocabulary and context are familiar, students can focus on the new structure without feeling overwhelmed. To make input comprehensible, teachers provide lots of contextual support. This might include pictures, diagrams, gestures, demonstrations, or real-world objects. For example, when teaching the sentence, "The boy is climbing the tree," a teacher might show a picture or act out the motion. These supports help learners understand the meaning, even if the grammar is new. Visuals and actions bridge the gap between known and unknown language. Teachers also grade language difficulty across activities. For instance, they might start with a simple sentence like, "She eats breakfast." Then they move to, "She is eating breakfast." Finally, they add complexity. "She is eating breakfast before going to school." Each step introduces a small amount of new information, allowing learners to build understanding gradually. This progression keeps learning manageable and motivating. Another strategy is choosing listening and reading materials that are mostly understandable but contain some unfamiliar language. For example, a reading passage where 90–95% of the vocabulary is known, or a listening activity with a familiar topic. This way, learners can grasp the overall meaning while naturally picking up new words or structures. It's about exposure in a supportive context. Teachers often scaffold new language by asking guiding questions. After introducing a sentence like, "The children are building a sandcastle," the teacher might ask, "What are the children doing?" or "Are they eating or building?" These questions help focus attention on the new structure and reinforce understanding. Scaffolding like this makes new language less intimidating and more accessible. To strengthen acquisition, teachers recycle new language across multiple activities. For example, a new structure might appear in a listening activity, a short reading, guided speaking practice, and a writing exercise. This repeated exposure helps learners internalize the new language without feeling overwhelmed. It's about building familiarity through practice and variety. TESOL teachers naturally adjust their speech to provide comprehensible input. They might speak a bit slower, simplify sentence structures, repeat key phrases, or paraphrase unfamiliar words. For instance, saying, "The student is exhausted, he is very tired." The paraphrase helps learners connect new vocabulary with known words, making the input more accessible. The ultimate goal of I+1 is not just exposure to grammar, but meaningful communication. Teachers encourage students to use new language in real contexts, like describing what people are doing in pictures. "The woman is cooking," or "the boy is riding a bicycle." This approach helps learners use language for real purposes, not just memorizing rules. While I+1 is a powerful guideline, modern TESOL research emphasizes more than just input. Interaction, feedback, and learner output are also vital. Language acquisition happens through a combination of comprehensible input, practice, interaction, and reflection. Teachers create opportunities for students to use language, receive feedback, and reflect on their learning. In practice, teachers plan lessons so that learners can understand most of the language while encountering manageable amounts of new material. This might mean carefully selecting texts, designing activities that build on prior knowledge, and providing plenty of support. The aim is always to keep learners in that optimal learning zone challenged but not overwhelmed. When introducing new grammar or vocabulary, teachers often use familiar contexts. For example, if students know how to talk about daily routines, the teacher might introduce the present continuous tense within that context. This way, students can focus on the new structure without being distracted by unfamiliar topics or words. Visuals and real-world objects, or realia, are powerful tools for making new language comprehensible. For example, when teaching action verbs, a teacher might use pictures, gestures, or even real objects to demonstrate meaning. This approach helps bridge the gap between what students know and what they're learning. Effective language teaching involves a gradual progression from simple to more complex language. Teachers might start with basic sentences, then add new elements step by step. This scaffolding ensures that learners are always working just beyond their current level, making steady progress without feeling overwhelmed. Selecting the right listening and reading materials is key. Teachers look for texts where most of the vocabulary and structures are familiar, but there's enough new language to provide a challenge. This balance helps learners build confidence and expand their skills naturally. Guided practice activities, such as answering questions or completing structured tasks, help reinforce new language. Teachers might ask students to answer questions about a story or describe a picture using new grammar. This focused practice supports understanding and retention. Repeating new language in different contexts helps solidify learning. For example, a new verb tense might appear in listening, reading, speaking, and writing tasks. This repetition, across varied activities, ensures that learners encounter the new language multiple times, deepening their understanding. Teachers often adjust their speech to match learners' needs. This might mean speaking more slowly, using simpler sentences, or repeating key points. Paraphrasing is also common, explaining new words using familiar language. These adjustments make input comprehensible and support learning. Modern language teaching recognizes the importance of learner output. Teachers encourage students to use new language in speaking and writing, not just listening and reading. This active use helps consolidate learning and gives teachers a chance to provide feedback and support. Interaction is a key part of language acquisition. Teachers create opportunities for students to interact with each other and with the teacher, using new language in meaningful ways. Feedback during these interactions helps learners notice and correct errors, further supporting their progress. Reflection is another important aspect. Teachers encourage learners to think about what they've learned, notice their progress, and identify areas for improvement. This self-monitoring helps learners become more independent and effective in their language learning journey. Some believe that I+1 means always pushing learners with difficult material. In reality, the challenge should be small and manageable. The majority of input should be understandable, with just a touch of newness. Overloading students can lead to frustration, while the right balance leads to steady progress. For teachers, applying I+1 means knowing your student's current level, choosing materials carefully, and providing plenty of support. Use visuals, gestures, and realia. Scaffold new language with questions and examples. Repeat and recycle new language across activities. Adjust your speech and encourage meaningful communication. To sum up, I+1 is about providing language input that is mostly understandable, with just enough newness to promote learning. It's a balance between comfort and challenge. Teachers use a variety of strategies, visuals, scaffolding, repetition, and interaction to keep learners in the optimal learning zone. This approach supports steady, confident language growth. Remember, language acquisition is a journey. The I+1 principle helps keep learners moving forward, step by step. By providing comprehensible input, encouraging interaction, and supporting reflection, teachers create an environment where language can flourish. Whether you're a teacher or a learner, understanding and applying I+1 can make all the difference in your language learning experience.